Hey guys, welcome to the Rideshare Report. Mike Dean in the house, and you're my guest. Thanks for joining me for today's pretty breaking news. It looks like, according to KVU ABC out in Austin, Texas, the headlines go: Voters reject Uber and Lyft's Proposition 1. This has been an ongoing controversy over the last several months with regards to fingerprint background checks for the drivers. It started off with the city council voting for background checks. A petition went out that both Uber and Lyft orchestrated and initiated, and they got people to sign. They got enough signatures that forced this to go to the voting block, and it did today, Saturday. And the outcome so far doesn't look good. So much so that the mayor, Steve Adler, has already mentioned, indirectly, that there's a victory, and he's willing to sit down with Uber and Lyft prior to them leaving the city. So I just want to go over this. This is how it played out so far, with 76% of the precincts reporting. This is according to KVUABCnews.com or KVU.com, with 76% of the precincts reporting in the city of Austin, Proposition 1 was losing by a 56.07% to 43.93% margin. A vote for the ordinance would have removed the city's requirement for fingerprint-based criminal background checks for drivers. A vote against the ordinance kept the current city council regulations in place, and as it seems like today, folks, it looks like those fingerprint regulations will be remaining. Now, keep in mind, both Uber and Lyft said if that's the case, if that happens, we are out. We are rolling out the door. We're going to be out of this city of Austin Monday. They've threatened that from the get-go, and I would not put it past them that would happen. Now, it happened in Austin, Texas. Both Uber and Lyft got up and left when fingerprint background checks became a requirement. I'm not going to get into some of the challenges and the issues, but there was a number of incidences where some drivers did not snuck through the system, through Uber's background check system, and committed crime, sexual assault on a rider. And it turns out that particular driver had a criminal history, and he shouldn't have made it through the system. So these are some of the concerns that are going on with the city and state local government. This is what they're grappling with, and they feel that for the most part that fingerprint background checks or it should be primary process in the vetting process. So however, Uber and Lyft have been able to get around that in a lot of cities and states. It's even here in San Francisco, not one driver has to go through a fingerprint background check during the vetting process, and the list goes on. It's just a handful of states, I believe Houston and New York, and maybe one other is a requirement. But let's keep our focus on Austin for right now. Let's get back to it. So as the mayor has mentioned, the people have spoken tonight loud and clear. Uber and Lyft are welcome to stay in Austin, and I invite them to the table regardless. And Austin is an innovative and creative city, and will need to be at our most creative and innovative now. We'll see how the votes tally and how they kind of finalize in this process. It's going to be quite interesting. Now, both Uber and Lyft have given what appears to be valid reasons of why they don't want fingerprint background checks. One of the reasons is because it delays the vetting process. Another is because it's discriminatory. Another is because it might discourage some current drivers who are driving from continuing on to drive. There's just multiple reasons. It's not a cost factor, according to both Uber and Lyft. It's more so having to do with delaying the vetting process. That's pretty much what I gather, as well as their own system, which is Checker. They use Checker for the it's a third-party commercial background system check that checks court records and other databases, but there's no fingerprinting through that system. And that's part of the controversy. So, another reason is that, a potential driver who does a fingerprint background check might show up as being arrested, for example, but has never been convicted for that particular crime and or that particular incident. So that's the reason as well. But I think there are a number of reasons why, and I'll get to that in a second. But first, I just want to add to that additionally to that, there's a lawsuit that has currently been put into place, FCC compliant, in which Uber will be facing, again, a lawsuit, FCC compliant, over Proposition 1 text messages that were sent out to a number of customers and individuals and potential voters in a way to inform them of their right to vote in favor, and the fact that they that Uber and Lyft need them to vote in favor in order to continue to operate in the city of Austin, Texas. And this is coming from my statesman out of Austin. I'll just read for you a little bit. Uber has come under fire for sending text message blasts this weekend, asking customers to head to polls to vote to overturn Austin's fingerprint regulations for drivers with ride-hailing apps. The text messages, which were purportedly sent by Uber employees, directly solicited the service's customers to vote for Proposition 1, leaving political observers and election law experts agog, and many Austinites, not happy and quite annoyed by the barrage of text messages. Just to give you an idea what the text messages said, here's one, which is listed on the site. Austin, this is Jennifer from Uber. Ride sharing is on the ballot and early voting ends tomorrow. Can we count on your vote for Proposition 1 to keep Uber in Austin? So there's an implication there that if Proposition 1 doesn't pass, well, Uber and Lyft are no longer going to be in that city. And those have been the threats, the ongoing threats for that matter, since day one. Today's the deadline to vote. Vote for Proposition 1 to keep Uber in Austin. Turnout is high, and every vote counts. Find a polling place. So, there's a lot of controversy just within the controversy of the fingerprint background checks. Of course, originally, the city council had voted for fingerprint background checks. Both Uber and Lyft weren't happy about that, so they started a petition so that so the voting would be in the hands of the people. That petition was successful, raising an astronomical number of votes. And today, Saturday, it came to the voting process. And again, it appears that both Uber and Lyft have been rejected in that process as well, and our Proposition 1 has been shot down. And it's going to be very challenging if both Uber and Lyft, remove themselves from the city of Austin. It's going to create a major void for both, affordable transportation for the ridership, and of course the opportunity for income and earnings for drivers. It would be devastating and perhaps morally just inappropriate. That's kind of how I feel. I don't think that should be the case. I don't think it's something that they should do. I think it's not a great decision, but it's part of using that, those threats as leverage. This has been a cut and paste process for quite some time, and it's been quite successful on both Uber and Lyft's part, where they roll into a city, again, unregulated, against the wishes of the city and state and local regulatory bodies. They rapidly build up a customer base and a driver base, and then when the regulators come to do their job, they threaten to leave, and then all of a sudden, you got the city and state local government. They do a complete 360 and say, fine, stay, and in a sense, self-regulate. It's part of their strategy. It's been successful. Whether it's, again, morally, incorrect or appropriately, it's a whole different animal. It's not about Uber and Lyft, really, as it is much about the city and state local government and how they are allowed to be persuaded, or how they make the final decision. So literally, they are the ones who are accountable for the safety of the residents in their city by making these decisions. So that's how it goes. But I just want to move on. There's been a lot of question, as I mentioned, of why doesn't Uber and Lyft want fingerprint background checks? I mean, what's the big deal? And I've mentioned some of those things just a minute ago. Again, it deters the vetting process, potential new drivers. It slows down the process. It discourages current drivers. It's discriminatory in a sense. And it's not a better system. And the system that's already in place, the checker, the third-party commercial background check system, is equally as adequate. And there was a time when it was said that it was more than adequate than fingerprint background checks, if not, the state of the art, process. And that wasn't quite the case. But again, they're contending that it is just as equal and is not necessary for fingerprint background checks. So we get a lot of reasons why. We've heard Uber's reasons, but we haven't really heard one that I've come across being discussed much. And I just want to read this. This is from Inc. magazine, nrinc.com, and this is surrounding the fingerprint background checks. And it reads as such. I just want to start off here that the discovery, I quote unquote, the discovery would appear to put pressure on Uber to adopt a more thorough background process in order to stay in consumers' good graces. But there's more at stake here. If the company does adopt more rigorous background checks, which could include fingerprinting drivers seeking which could include fingerprinting. Drivers seeking classification as employees could try to use the move as evidence they are indeed employees and not private contractor, says one labor attorney. So I'm not going to get into that article, but I'll have it posted underneath the video here as well as My Statesman and the article from KVUE ABC News. So that's critical. Because that is something that some labor experts have been discussing as perhaps one of the reasons, because it tends to put more control over the drivers, and that doesn't perhaps sit too well with some of the current controversies surrounding misclassification, and this could in a sense tip the balance in future cases to come and or current as to the level of control that both perhaps Uber and Lyft, or any TNC for that matter, may have over their drivers. So once again, I will be following up with this breaking news, and as the events unfold, I'm sure tomorrow this will be all over the media. So again, thanks for joining me here at the Rideshare Report. If you have any questions or comments or feedback or criticisms, by all means leave them. Keep in mind, I am not an official news guy, but I am the official first rideshare driver. I've been in this industry since 2011, starting off with the first rideshare TNC startup coming out of San Francisco, which was Sidecar, founded by Sunil Paul and Adrian Conan, and CFO was Nick Allen, who was a part of, who launched Shuttle, which is Uber for Kids, which recently closed their doors down. As you know, December 31st, 2015, Sidecar closed their doors as well. So I've been in the industry, and not just as a driver, but as a participant, as someone who has taken part. You can almost say I've been obsessive compulsive as well, because it's been something that I've found myself attached to. So I read a lot about the industry. I've, in a sense, indirectly study it, and it's become part of my life, and because of that, I've started the Rideshare Report, just to share information as it happens, and I think it's definitely, in my opinion, non-biased, or it's coming directly from a rideshare driver. So why not, right? So once again, this is Mike Dean with the Rideshare Report for you drivers out there in Austin, Texas. I'm a driver too. I hope everything works out for you. I hope that you're able to fill that void in the event that Uber and Lyft get up and leave. I hope there's some other options for you. As you know, and I just want to follow up with this, that Get Me is launched and launched in Houston, Texas about a year and a half ago, and they seem to be making some moves out there and some ground. And they've mentioned to Austin, to the city of Austin, that if Uber and Lyft both get up and leave, they will fill that void. And I've got to mention this is really important. Not only will they fill that void, but they will adhere to any requirements necessary in order to operate, including fingerprint background checks. And I think there's several other rideshare companies that have, in a sense, volunteered or, the willingness to to abide by city and state local regulations. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how all this pans out. By Monday, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of news surrounding this. But again, once again, for you drivers out there in Austin, Texas, I definitely suggest you start taking a look at your options in the event that Uber and Lyft feel that it's necessary for them to leave. I'm sure you would hate for them to leave. I would hate for them to leave the city of Austin or even here the city of San Francisco. There's been a lot of controversy, there's been a lot of challenges for drivers, but there's still that opportunity, that provides the freedom and flexibility for us as drivers. There's still controversy about how drivers are being treated and things of that nature, but a lot of people still use the service and they find it valuable to their own personal lives, as I actually still do. I found my niche in this, and being being the founder of the Rideshare Report, it keeps me in the game, and I'm grateful to that much. Once again, Mike Dean, Rideshare Report. Thanks for joining me. Remember who loves you, because it ain't me. I'm lying, I love you. And remember, Uber on, lift off, baby.